welcome to Women Finding Clarity.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Happiest New Year to you. Did you do anything fun for the new year to celebrate?
Uh, we were out during the day with my sisters and their partners, and we got home around 7 o'clock and we binge watched something on Netflix. And at 11:30, I looked at my husband. I was like, all right, so we're done. He's like, well, we almost made it to midnight. I was like, oh, you want to stay up 30 more minutes? He was like, come on, it's almost midnight. And at like 11:45, I tried to do a countdown and he wasn't buying it. So I think I was in bed by 12:02. We turned on Dick Clark, which it's still Dick Clark, and did the countdown. And I was like, now can I go to bed? And
I
I'm a
love
night
that so
person,
much.
but New Year's has never been one of those forced things for me.
Yeah, yeah. I love to stay up to watch the ball drop. And I mean, we were up because this is the first year we didn't have all the kids home for New Year's Eve. And so I became the designated driver to go pick them up from their
Ugh.
place. And I was happy to do it, honestly, because I knew they were all home safe, you
Sure,
know?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
So
think that's the thing too, is like being out at that time doesn't feel safe sometimes because even if you don't drink, you know others are, and it's just not worth it. Yeah.
exactly. I had it out by 12, maybe 12:20
Yeah.
to just get them and get home
Yeah.
before everybody else.
Everyone else left their places. Exactly.
Exactly. Thankfully, it was all in the same
Yeah.
town.
Nice.
So, in the spirit of the new year and everything that you do that's so amazing, let's talk about breaking the addiction of busyness.
Oh, yes.
I think that's a big one for the new year.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Why is that important to you? And you know what? No follow-up to that.
Okay.
Why is that important to you?
Yeah. So I think, we're coaches and we have to have the niche, right? And I have always fought the niche and I'm like, I help women do all these things. And what I'm realizing is so many of them have this addiction to busyness. And I'm just really starting to hone more in on that. And the thing with addiction is, we are addicted to food, we are addicted to alcohol, we are addicted to drugs. But the difference is when you're addicted to those, you're a fat, drunk addict. Right? There's negative connotations. But when you are addicted to busyness, and most of the women I work, most of my clients are women, you are a woman getting shit done.
Yep.
So you get the atta girls, you get accolades for being busy when
Yeah.
it is so depleting and it's hiding, just like food, alcohol, and drugs are hiding the thing that you need to work on. So is busyness. Often it's tied to self. For me, I will share, it was tied to and it probably still is because there's still some busyness there, but it is tied to self-worth. If I'm not doing, I'm not worthy. Right? I
Yes.
had a situation a couple of years ago. I was supposed to go to an event and it was like a 3-day workshop that at the last minute I chose not to go and I don't even remember why. So I had 3 days on my calendar with nothing scheduled. So the first morning I get up and I'm reading my book. And about, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes in, I started to feel anxious and I said, oh, I have to go do something. Now I've done enough self-awareness work that I was like, well, you actually have nothing to do.
Yeah.
And I could feel the anxiety in my body. In the past, I would have just gotten up and started working because there's always something to do.
Absolutely.
So I'm an EFT practitioner. And for those that are listening that don't know what EFT is, also known as tapping, it works on the acupressure points on your body. You tap on those to get to the subconscious, to get to the root. So I was like, all right, here's a great opportunity to do some tapping, Francine. So I started tapping, and what I got to was, oh, if I'm not doing, I'm not worthy.
Mm.
And I was like, all right, so we're going to sit here and continue reading this book because I also work with my clients about sitting in the uncomfortableness, right? So I had to sit and feel how uncomfortable it was.
Yes.
To just read a book.
Yeah. And for anybody who's not watching on video, that was air quotes.
Air quotes,
just
exactly.
read a
Yeah.
book, right? It's so important. And we do, especially as women, oftentimes measure our worth by our busyness.
Right.
And the other thing that comes up with that is the more you do, the more that is expected, right?
Oh, 100%.
Because if you give and give and give and give, and then the next time you don't want to give or you don't feel like giving, there's that expectation that you're going to give at least as much as you did the last time. And
Right.
you don't, in comes the guilt, the shame, the unworthiness again.
Right. When we start creating those boundaries, right? When we start saying no, gee, I can't do that. Well, why not? Right. Well, I mean, I remember the first time I said no to somebody. I'm also a hairdresser. And this was many years ago. This was the beginning of my journey. It was probably ten years ago. It was my sister's now ex-husband. It was a Sunday, and I had plans to do something. My husband had plans to do something, and I was going to stay home alone and just spend time with me. And he texted me and said, "Can I get a haircut?" And I said, "No, not today, but I can do it whenever." He was like, and then the text, "Come on, it won't take that long." And he was right. It wouldn't have taken that long. And I had nothing really planned. So I had to make a choice. I had to either be willing to be uncomfortable and sit in the discomfort of that no, or I had to just suck it up and cut his hair. Well, I chose to be in the uncomfortable. Nobody died, right? Like that's the thing is like we never allow ourselves to be uncomfortable to learn that we can actually survive it. It's just a
Right.
feeling.
Yep.
Nobody has died from being uncomfortable,
Yeah.
but we
The
so often don't.
question, exactly. And the question is, what would have come up? What different kind of discomfort would have come up if you gave in and you said yes?
Right. Well,
That
probably would have
also
had.
would have been uncomfortable,
Right.
resentment, right?
Yep. Yeah, I would have said I was resenting him,
Right.
but really I was resenting myself because I didn't honor me. I didn't honor what I needed, what I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you walk a client through that? If a client is really having a hard time with, breaking free of the busyness and saying no, and what does that look like? I mean, obviously it's different for every client,
Sure.
but how do you help women find the balance between busyness and being fulfilled?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. You're right. It is different for every client. Sometimes it's as simple as taking 3 deep breaths. So if you can't give yourself 30 seconds or a minute, we got bigger problems.
Yeah.
Right. So often we have to start really small, right? Can you give yourself 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Right. Can you give yourself 5 minutes? Right. I'll share my sister because she won't listen to this probably. My sister, about a month or 2 months ago, she had such a bad UTI that they thought she did something to her kidneys. And I said to her, "What took you so long to go to?" I didn't have time. You didn't have time to take care of your own health,
Right.
right? Like her kids are 17 and 19. They don't need her for anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, how we say that I don't have time. Mothers, and I don't have children, right? But mothers, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. It's that whole put the oxygen on you first.
Hmm.
Because if you're not taking care of you, you literally can't take care of anyone else.
That's right.
So we have to, sometimes it's just the awareness. Sometimes it's getting someone to say it out loud and go, huh, yeah, I guess that does make sense that my health is more important and I'm more important, and right?
Yeah.
Because we don't even see it. I have been on my own little healing journey the last year. I had my hip replaced last October and my knee replaced this past October. So,
Ouch.
right? So I haven't had a whole lot of time to do a lot this year. And I've had to sit in that discomfort of nothingness,
Yeah.
right? Of what's my purpose? What's my value? And working through some of those really dark days of like, oh my God, I can't watch another Netflix series or I can't, right? But here I am just sitting here relaxing and healing my body so that I can then show up for my clients, so that I can show up for your listeners, right? Because if
That's
I'm not
right.
taking care of me, I could not have done these 2 surgeries 10 years ago. I would have lost my friggin' mind.
So interesting because 10 years ago you were younger and you would have healed faster and
Right.
right.
But the sitting part would have
Yeah.
driven me crazy.
Wow.
Like,
Look at you go.
yeah.
Look
I
at
mean,
your self-development.
because I've learned like I need to take care of my body. My body is in this shape because I spent many years without the number not taking care of it and just pushing past the pain, right? Because I had shit I had to do.
That's right.
You know, I look
Oftentimes
at
for other people.
I love Facebook memories. but it makes me cringe when I look at memories from like 11, 12, whatever, 13, however long Facebook. I was really productive. Like I used to post on Facebook how productive I was because that was
Wow.
a badge of honor,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I will tell you, I know you said that you do not have children. I do. And that also becomes a badge of honor as a mother, being
Sure.
busy
Yeah.
and, being able to get all the things done. And I remember when my kids were younger, they're young adults now. But when they were younger, very young, I was having a conversation with my dad, and I said something about not being able to get the housework done, or the house isn't clean, or I can't keep up something. And he said, well, I don't understand why you can't. Your mother had no problem getting it all done. And I said, well, I guess she was just better at it than I am.
Ouch.
It immediately put me on the defensive and made me feel unworthy.
Yeah.
It immediately made me feel resentful because I wasn't enough. But when I was able to just step back from that comment, really what's underneath of that is that's all I know. And why is it different for you? But the way it felt like it came
Landed.
at
Yeah.
me put me on the defensive. And, in really sitting back and thinking about that, my mom could do it because, I mean, that was her energy, first of all. She called
Yeah.
her the Energizer Bunny because she never stopped.
And we
Secondly,
do that as a badge of honor, and it's so not good.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Secondly, I had undiagnosed ADD. So I had trouble organizing my thoughts and my tasks.
Sure. Yeah.
you know and thirdly, she would stay up until all hours of the night sweeping and mopping and all the things, and I'm a person who needs sleep. So I think really one of the most valuable lessons for me that came out of that is, let's step out of the comparison. We
Yeah.
don't, when we think about comparison, we think about keeping up with the Joneses. This neighbor has this, so I need to have this.
Yeah.
But it's so much trickles right over into our busyness, our
Oh,
worth
100.
of being able to volunteer and keep a clean house and keep a tidy yard and all the things.
Well, and I think social media has destroyed us in that comparison, right? Like I have so many clients that I'm like, okay, just because you're seeing it on social doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah,
Like, what aren't you seeing?
that's right.
Right? Oh my God, they're doing so well in their business. Oh my God. I mean, I've had people say to me, oh my God, your business is taking off. And in my brain, I'm like, you should see the numbers, not this month, right? But what they're
Right.
seeing and what they're interpreting is one thing. And what I'm interpreting, right? Like the reality is I had a rough month or whatever it was, right? But you see me out there, so you assume, right? Just like when you see people doing all this marketing doesn't mean, right? I compared myself once to another coach. I was like, oh, I wish I could do what that coach does. And a friend said, I've seen behind the curtains. It's not what you think, right? And I'm like, thank you for, like, I know that to be true, but
Yeah,
sometimes even I needed that reminder, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And even if behind the curtains is zhuzhy and
Right.
beautiful, how is your life different? And why does it make sense that yours doesn't look exactly like theirs? Like
Right.
your life, let's go back to kids. Your life would look very different from my life 10 years ago because
Sure.
I was in it with the kids
Right.
and you weren't, right?
Yep.
We need to all keep that in mind. Like, let's step out of the comparison because A, it doesn't help anybody, especially
Right.
yourself. B, we have very different lives, very different factors that play in. And C, we have very different perceptions through our own goggles
Lens.
of
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have on rose glasses. You have on blue.
exactly. I'd probably go purple, but absolutely
Purple. So would I actually. Thank you for clarifying that.
love you.
And I think, I love sharing this story. When I was in coaching school, I was sitting shoulder to shoulder with one of my classmates, and the founder of the school was explaining a situation about a story about an event that happened earlier in the day. And I looked at my classmate and I said, wow, that was really great of him. And she looked at me and she said, what an asshole. And I was like, we just heard the same words from the same person at the same time and had two very different experiences because of our history, because of our experiences, because of our lives, right? So, like the comparison thing, Like you can look at something and I can look at something and we're going to have two different reactions to it because of our lives, because of the things that we've experienced in our life.
That's right. It's so true. And we need to think about that in our personal life and in our work, our business life, whatever it is, especially when we feel like, what an asshole.
Right.
Remind yourself to pause and say, would my feeling be different if I was looking through a different lens?
Well, I also would even add, I believe what we see in others is a reflection of us, right?
Amen,
So if you're
sister.
calling that person an asshole, then you need to look at where you're an asshole. And I worked for a woman many years ago who was very dismissive with people. Like the way she treated people was horrible. And it triggered the shit out of me every time I saw her do it. I was really clear on knowing that I didn't treat others like that, but I also knew that if I was having that much of a reaction, there was something there that I needed to look at.
Yeah.
So I was driving home one day and I was like, okay, what is this? And I'm like, hands on the steering wheel. For those of you that can't see, I'm like gripping a steering wheel. And I had what I would refer to as a spiritual sucker punch. I dismiss me. So I knew I was clear that I didn't dismiss others. But what it was I dismissed me. Once I worked through that and cleared that with me, I never saw it again in that woman. The next time I saw her, she was like, "Hi, Francine, how are you? How was your weekend?" Like we were like BFFs.
Wow.
He did not change. She still did the same thing with the people, but my trigger wasn't there. And that's why doing our own work is so friggin' important
Yeah.
because it's so easy to blame everyone else when it's
Yeah.
never about the other person. Ever,
Yes,
ever.
ever. Even if it feels like it's about the other person, yes, it could be about ourselves. And other ways it could be about yourself is I need better boundaries, right?
Yeah,
I need to use my voice. I need,
right.
so it does always come back to ourselves, whether we recognize it or not.
Right. I had a client a while ago. We were working together, and she shared that whenever she asked her husband to do something, he would roll his eyes. And it made her feel a certain way. And I was like, okay, so let's just look at this from a different perspective. Could it be possible that he feels shame and guilt that he hadn't done it the first time? And she was like, oh, that shifted so much for her. Like every time she, like now she real because just because you're having the emotions, he is too. He just may not be saying it the way that you do, but that
Right.
shifted for her because now she just looks at it differently when she owns how she shows up and how she speaks, but she's aware of how her words aren't, his response isn't necessarily about her. It's about
Right.
his own stuff.
Yes. And how could she show up differently? How could she use different words
Right. And
with
that's what
him
she's
where he
done.
is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what she learned. She's like, oh, okay. I'm more aware of how I ask and how I show up so as to not, he has to do his work to release his triggers and that's his journey.
Yeah.
But, I think in relationship, there's me, there's you, there's us,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
I always say to people, like, their response is not your responsibility, but you still have a responsibility in how you show up in the relationship, whatever kind of relationship it is, right? But when people say he made me feel bad or she made me feel bad, I'm like, actually,
Yeah.
nobody can really make you feel bad, right? Like you
That's
have to
right.
look inward to see why you're responding the way that you're responding.
So beautifully said. So true. Excuse me, whether it's our own busyness, our spouses or partners' busyness, we want all the things done. I very quickly, I know this about myself, can go into overwhelm,
Oh,
right? Because
yeah.
the to-do list, once I start writing the to-do list, it feels like it's never ending, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about getting out of the overwhelm because
Yeah.
if we want to step away from our busyness being our worth, along, the partner to busyness is overwhelm. So how
Yeah.
do we step out of overwhelm to enable ourselves to be less busy?
Yeah, great. Great question. I think one of the things to recognize as humans, you're always going to have a to-do list. Thinking that you're going to get through your to-do list is setting yourself up to fail. I learned something 100 years ago in a time management workshop when I back in my corporate days. if it's in your head, get it on paper. Like get it out of your brain. So I have this running list, right? Here, for those of you, it's an entire sheet of paper. I don't even know what's on this, but it was in my brain at one point. And I may or may not, like I'll redo it and I'll look at it. And I might say, I'm going to do these two things today. Or, you know what? This is no longer important, but getting it out of your brain is like key.
Yeah.
One of the things I also do is I bring my clients through, I have a workshop called How to Do More by Being More. And I did it at a summit and I do workshops on it. And I have a video that I share with my new clients that it brings them through this exercise on who are you being? So my top beings are connections, fun, and enthusiasm. So I know I could sit here and talk to you until it was pitch black out because it is connecting, it's fun, and I can be enthusiastic.
Yep.
When I have to pay bills, I want to poke my eyes out. Now I know that I have to pay bills or they'll shut the lights off, right? But bringing who I be to what I do also is a way to keep that overwhelmed. Like, all right, what are the fun things? Because I think it's having both, right? The things that you have to do, and I hate using the word have to, but the things that, need to get done and the things you want to, and find that balance. Because if we're all work and no play, right? Remember The Shining? It doesn't end well, right? So we can't be all work and no play. So it's getting it out of your head and on paper. But that doesn't mean you have to get through the list. Because then what I do, I put it all on paper, and then at the beginning of the day, at the beginning of the week, I look at the list and I go, all right, here are the 3 things that I want to get done today within reason, right?
Yeah.
And even the other thing I would also invite people to do, because I hadn't done this in years and I just did it recently. I'm in a mastermind and we met in person at the in December and kind of mapped out our year. And I came and I was like, here's everything I'm going to get done this year. And one of them said, hey, Francine, being the coach of busyness, that feels like an awful lot. Have you thought of doing a time study? And when I did the times, so I picked like the top 3 things. I think I'm at working 47 hours a week.
Wowza.
Right. So it's important to be realistic, right?
Yeah.
So I used to do time studies when I was in corporate, but I really haven't done it as an entrepreneur, right? Because I'm just getting shit done. But when I did it, and I thanked her, I was like, thank you for doing that, because it really helped put things in perspective for me. Because I do, and I may get to the other things later in the year. And I knew it wasn't all Q1, but as entrepreneurs, we're like, I want to do this and I want to do this, and oh, this has to get done. And then nothing happens
That's
because
right.
we get paralyzed in the overwhelm, right? So it is important to be like, okay, here's my list of 20. I'm focusing on 2.
Yeah.
Right.
I
And
love that.
I think it's different for everyone, right? Like as business owners, okay, I might want to focus on what's going to bring me revenue and what's going to, light me up. Like I also have a podcast. I love my like that lights me up. Doesn't necessarily bring me money, but it lights me up. So I'm going to continue to do that. But I shifted the way I do it. I do 1 recording a week. When I first started it in July, I just opened my calendar and whenever anybody scheduled was fine. That doesn't work, right? So now I do it 1 a week.
Yeah.
I still get to
Beautiful.
do it.
And what I see there is you do what brings you joy with boundaries around it
Yep.
so it can continue to light you up.
And I will add, my boundaries can be flexible, right? Like I have one woman, I only
Absolutely.
record on Wednesdays, and one person I'm going to record with, she's like, honestly, I can't. I'm like, that's okay. But it will be on like, I think she can do Fridays. It will be on a Friday that works for me, right? So having flexible boundaries, right? That doesn't mean you can walk on me, but that means, okay, I say I'm going to do it on Wednesday, but I can do it on a Tuesday or a Thursday if it's not a big deal, or a Friday or a Monday, right? So
Absolutely.
it's having that level of flexibility. And on the week that I do hers, I won't do another one on the Wednesday.
Yeah. And what I'll add to that, I mean, such a really important thing to point out is if you are busy and you have every single day scheduled out to the 15-minute, you have no place to be flexible.
And I will share with you, I am not the time blocking. That is something that has never worked for me. I'm trying to get a little bit better with it in 2025, just because there are things that I want to get done. But for me, the minute I time block, feels restrictive. I
Yeah.
need that space to allow myself to be creative. You said you have late diagnosis ADD. I probably have like my husband has ADD. I don't have what he has, but I have my own version of it.
Yeah.
Right. So I could be like, oh, this is fun. Now I want to do this. Oh, this is fun. Right. So if I had to be like, oh, nope, from 2 to 3, you have to work on this, that would feel restrictive to me. And that's not fun. Right. So for me, I want to do what's fun.
I feel exactly the same way. And I think you probably have the same ADD that I have, because I will start something and I will do it until it's not fun and enjoyable anymore. And then I'm done with that, whether it's completed or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Here,
And that's
can
if
I
I'm
add to
not
that?
using my tools and I'm not taking my meds.
And what I would also add, because I know this in me, I don't know if it's the same in you. When it triggers something in me, in the I don't know how to do that, like my, you know, I unworthiness, my not good enough, when it triggers something in me, when I get stuck, I automatically like, oh, let me go have a snack. Oh, let me go on social. Then I have to go, okay, you're not actually hungry. So
Yeah.
let's look at what's going on. Because I can get into something, and then when it feels squirmy, because it doesn't feel good, I may tap it out and see what's going on, because there's something else usually going on. Like often, I mean, uh, for those that aren't listening, that aren't watching, but I used to weigh 300 pounds, so I don't anymore, right? So food is my solace, and it
Yeah.
still is, right? So I have an addiction to food, right? I've got that. So the busyness then, probably filled that when I lost the weight almost 30 years ago. So that filled that. So when I get squirmy, my response is, let me go get a snack.
Yeah. Yep.
And it has taken a while for me to do the check-in of like, huh, are you actually hungry? You're not. Go sit your ass back down.
Yeah.
Do
Good for you.
something else. But
Still,
it's,
though,
yeah,
having that awareness, even to just start with an awareness, is a
yeah,
great place to start.
yeah.
It's amazing.
And
So we've used words in this conversation like niche and purpose and joy and all the things. Let's talk about, in our life of busyness and not knowing our purpose or our niche or how to even find our joy. What do you say to someone who feels very far away from ease or fulfillment right now?
yeah.
What's the first step to encourage them toward living the life of purpose, the life that they're meant for?
So I think you already answered it. It's awareness, right? It's
Mm,
actually just starting. Often clients come to me because they want to work on their business, or they want to work on their relationship, or the thing. And while that's here, we start looking at the other things,
yeah.
right? And that's, a lot of that is through questions. I have an intake form, they answer questions, and then questions that I ask them that they're like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. I had one client recently who she's like, I don't always remember things when I'm at work. People say they had these conversations with me. I was like, oh, sweetheart, you're not in your body. Right? Like I need you to just get in your body. And she was
Yeah.
like, oh, so we did a thing, and she was like, oh, that feels interesting. Right? So like, it's this level of awareness that, change comes with awareness. And I don't fault anyone for not changing if they're not aware of their actions or behaviors, right?
That's
Or
right.
their responses. And, often I'll have clients that have these big breakthroughs, and they're like, now what? I'm like, nothing. You just go live in your life, right? It's not like the sky opens and the angels come down and go, good job, Francine,
We want
right?
that.
Yeah, of course, right? But it really does start with just awareness and curiosity,
Yeah.
right? Like me with that boss, like, why does she trigger me? Like, what's going on in me that is having that response?
Yeah. So beautiful. And giving yourself the time away from the busyness opens up that energetic space for the awareness.
100%. 100%.